Welcome to Monk's Temple. I want to start with something I've never shared publicly before. Several years ago, I found myself standing in a hospital room at 3 in the morning. My father was in the bed, connected to machines that beeped and hummed their steady rhythms. The doctors had told us earlier that day that there was nothing more they could do. I stood there watching his chest rise and fall, and I felt something I hadn't expected. It wasn't just grief. It wasn't just fear. It was a profound confusion about what was actually happening. Was the man I knew, his jokes, his stories, his anger, his love, was that all just biological processes shutting down? Or was something else happening that I couldn't see? That question led me on a journey through Buddhist psychology, through Zen monasteries, through the writings of masters who had looked at death so directly that it lost its power to terrify them. What I discovered changed everything. And today, I want to share the essence of that discovery with you. The ancient Buddhist traditions of Japan approached death with a directness that makes our modern avoidance strategies look absurd. We spend billions on anti-aging creams, on fitness regimens, on career achievements designed to outlast us. We scroll through social media to avoid sitting quietly with our own impermanence. We build monuments to ourselves called reputations and hope they survive after we don't. The Zen masters did none of this. They walked straight toward the fire and discovered that the fire doesn't burn when you understand what you actually are. We'll be exploring 3 of these masters together, Hakuin, Ryokan, and Ikkyu. 3 men who lived centuries apart but discovered the same liberating truth. Their approaches couldn't be more different. One was a fiery reformer who shocked his students with brutal directness. One was a gentle hermit who played with children and wrote poems about the moon. One was a scandalous outlaw who drank sake and carried a human skull through the streets of Kyoto. Yet all 3 arrived at the same destination. All 3 discovered that the thing we spend our lives running from is actually the doorway to everything we've been seeking. Let's begin with Hakuin, the 18th century master who revived the Rinzai school of Zen. Hakuin understood something that modern psychology is only beginning to confirm: the fear of death is not really about the future event of dying. The fear of death is about the present moment illusion of a solid, separate self. When that illusion is seen through, the fear dissolves like fog under morning sun. In his later years, Hakuin painted a single character on a large scroll. The character meant death. Beneath it, he wrote a poem that has disturbed and liberated students for centuries: "If you fear death, die now. Having died once, you will never die again." Before your mind generates alarms, let me clarify what Hakuin meant. He was not advocating physical self-harm. Zen is a tradition of radical life affirmation. The death he speaks of is the death of a fiction. It is the death of the false self. The constructed identity that believes itself to be a permanent, separate entity moving through time. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Buddhists discovered 1500 years ago: the sense of a stable, continuous self is an illusion. Your brain continuously constructs a narrative about who you are. This narrative includes your history, your beliefs, your preferences, your hopes and fears. But this narrative self is not a thing. It's a process. It's a constantly shifting collection of thoughts, memories, and sensations that your brain stitches together into the illusion of a stable you. The problem arises when this narrative self mistakes itself for the whole of who you are. It becomes terrified of its own impermanence. It grasps at experiences, possessions, and relationships, hoping to secure itself against dissolution. And it suffers constantly because nothing it grasps can ever provide lasting security. Hakuin's teaching is a form of radical psychological intervention. He's not trying to make the narrative self feel better about dying. He's inviting you to discover that you are not the narrative self at all. The you that fears death is not the same as the awareness that notices the fear. The awareness that reads these words, that notices thoughts arising and passing, that feels the sensations in your body, that awareness has no form, no history, no birth date. It was never born, so it can never die. Think of it this way. Imagine you're watching a movie. It's a gripping drama. You're deeply invested in the protagonist. 2 hours in, the protagonist faces a life-threatening situation. Your heart races. Your palms sweat. But then you remember. You're not the protagonist. You're sitting in a theater, watching light on a screen. The protagonist's danger cannot touch you. You were safe before the movie started, and you'll be safe after it ends. Hakuin is asking you to make this discovery about your own life. The narrative self, the protagonist of your personal movie, will eventually face its final scene. But you, the awareness that witnesses the entire movie, were never in danger. You were never born. You will never die. The fear belongs to the character, not to you. This is not a belief system. It's an invitation to direct investigation. Close your eyes for a moment and look for the you believe yourself to be. Can you find a solid, permanent self anywhere? Or do you find thoughts that come and go, feelings that rise and fall, sensations that appear and disappear? The one thing that remains constant is the awareness that notices all of this. That awareness is what you actually are. If this exploration resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to Monk's Temple. We explore these teachings every week, building a community of people committed to waking up from the dream of the separate self. Hit that subscribe button now. In our next part, we'll meet the gentlest of our 3 masters, a man who discovered the moon in an empty hut. But for now, sit with one question: who would you be without your story? Not without your body or responsibilities. Just without the story you tell about who you are. Sit with that. Notice what resists. That resistance is the doorway. I'll wait for your signal to continue. We began our journey with Hakuin's lightning bolt. If you fear death, die now. We explored how the death he speaks of isn't the body's end but the dissolution of the false self, the narrative identity that believes itself to be permanent. Now we turn to a teacher who approached the same truth through gentleness. His name was Ryokan, and he lived from 1758 to 1831. If Hakuin was a sword, Ryokan was a feather. Both arrived at the same destination. Ryokan chose a path that modern society would consider utter failure. He didn't want to be an abbot. He didn't want disciples. He didn't want recognition. He wanted to live alone in a tiny hut at the foot of a mountain, a structure barely 8 feet square, smaller than most bathrooms. His name meant generous fool, and he wore it like a badge of honor. Imagine his life. 1 straw mat to sleep on. 1 bowl to eat from. 1 robe, patched until it was more thread than fabric. Children from the nearby village would hike up to find him, not for profound teachings, but to play. He bounced silk balls with them. He played hide and seek. He wrote simple poems for them on scraps of paper. He was the village elder who owned nothing and therefore lacked nothing. There's a story that captures Ryokan's way of being. One winter evening, a visitor found him sitting in his unheated hut, picking lice from his robe. But instead of crushing them, Ryokan carefully placed each tiny creature in a warm corner. When the visitor asked why he didn't kill them, Ryokan smiled softly. "They're dying anyway," he said. "Why rush them? This isn't sentimentality. It's a direct perception of truth." Ryokan saw those lice not as pests but as fellow travelers on the same journey of birth and death. His compassion wasn't a moral rule. It was the natural expression of a mind that didn't see separation between self and other. He knew his life was as fleeting as theirs. The urgency to dominate simply wasn't there. Modern psychology calls this identification. We identify with some things and against others. This is my body, my comfort, my time. Those are threats, inconveniences. This constant process of identifying and opposing creates a solid self that must be protected. Ryokan had dropped this process. No self to protect meant no enemies to fight. Just life meeting life. The most famous story about Ryokan involves a thief. One autumn night, he returned to his hut to find a stranger ransacking his home. The thief searched frantically, but the hut was empty. There was nothing to steal. Ryokan watched the man's desperation and spoke gently. "You have come so far to visit me. I cannot let you go empty-handed. Please, take my clothes as a gift." He removed his robe and handed it to the astonished thief. The thief ran off into the night. Ryokan stood in his undergarments, looking at the empty space where his possessions had been. Then, through the small window, he saw it. The moon. Full and brilliant, pouring light into the empty room. More beautiful than anything he'd ever owned. He wrote a poem that echoes through centuries. The thief left it behind. The moon at my window. This isn't just poetry. It's a teaching on loss and gain. We spend our lives grasping, terrified of loss, believing security lies in what we own and achieve. Ryokan discovered the opposite. The more he let go, the more he had. When everything was taken, nothing was missing. The moon was always there. He just couldn't see it through the clutter. What are you holding on to right now? What would leave you devastated if taken tonight? Your reputation. Your career. A relationship you're clinging to out of fear. A grudge you rehearse like a favorite song. Here's an original story. I once knew a man who built his entire identity around his family business. 3 generations had worked there. He was going to be the one to pass it to his son. Then the business failed. He lost everything, the building, the inventory, the identity. He described it as a death. For months, he didn't know who he was. But then something shifted. With nothing left to defend, he started asking different questions. Not, how do I get back to where I was, but, who am I without all this? He discovered he loved teaching. He started volunteering at a community college. Years later, he told me losing the business was the best thing that ever happened. He had to die to who he thought he was, and on the other side, he found who he actually was. This is Ryokan's invitation. Practice letting go now. Look at your possessions, achievements, relationships. Ask, what am I clinging to? What story am I telling about who I am? What would be left if it all disappeared? The answer is the moon. The awareness that was there before you acquired anything and will be there after it's gone. That awareness cannot be stolen. It cannot be lost. It is what you actually are. In our next part, we'll meet the most scandalous of our three masters, a man who carried a human skull through Kyoto and wrote love poems that shocked the Buddhist establishment. But for now, practice this. Look around your room. Pick one object you feel attached to. Imagine it gone. Feel the loss. Then look past where it was and see what's still there. That seeing is the moon at your window. It was never at risk. I'll wait for your signal to continue. We've sat with Hakuin's lightning strike, die now to the false self. We've rested in Ryokan's gentle moonlight, discover what remains when everything is taken. Now we meet the most scandalous of our three masters. His name was Ikkyu Sojin, and he lived from 1394 to 1481 during one of the most corrupt periods in Japanese Buddhist history. The monasteries of Kyoto had become political institutions. Abbots collected tribute like feudal lords. Monks memorized sutras for rank, not understanding a word. The Buddhist establishment was wealthy, powerful, and spiritually bankrupt. Most reformers would have written treatises. Ikkyu did something far more dangerous. He became a mirror the establishment couldn't bear to look into. He called himself Crazy Cloud. He called himself Blind Donkey. He drank sake publicly when monks were supposed to abstain. He wrote explicit love poems and shared them openly. He had a decades-long relationship with a blind singer named Mori, utterly scandalous for a monk. And yet he claimed to transmit the purest dharma. The establishment wanted him expelled. Ikkyu's response was devastating. You're scandalized by my honest desire but completely blind to your own hypocrisy. Picture this scene. New Year's Day, Kyoto, 1440. The most important day on the Japanese calendar. Families in fine clothing, visiting shrines, exchanging blessings. Then a figure emerges from a side street. It's Ikkyu, disheveled, carrying a human skull on a stick, singing at the top of his lungs, "Attention! Every day is a good day to die. Look closely. This is your face before you were born." Parents covered their children's eyes. Authorities were furious. What made this terrifying wasn't the theatrics. It was the truth. Ikkyu forced people to look at what they spent their lives avoiding. Death isn't a distant event. It's present in every breath. The skull isn't a future reality. It's your current condition, just hidden beneath skin and denial. Here's what makes Ikkyu's biography even more striking. Some historical accounts suggest he was the illegitimate son of the emperor. Royal blood. He could have lived in a palace. He could have commanded armies. Instead, he chose to call himself Blind Donkey and live in poverty. Why? Ikkyu understood what comfort hides. Comfort lets you forget you're dying. A palace creates the illusion of permanence. Wealth builds walls against fundamental questions. Poverty keeps death close. It keeps questions honest. It strips away pretense until only what's real remains. Consider this psychologically. Most of us build our lives around what psychologists call terror management. We create structures of meaning to buffer ourselves from the terror of non-existence. We pursue achievements so we'll be remembered. We accumulate wealth so we'll feel secure. We build reputations so we'll matter. Ikkyu looked at all of this and laughed. He saw the skull beneath the skin of every abbot, every emperor, every beautiful person. All the terror management in the world cannot manage the one terror that matters. Here's an original story. I once met a woman diagnosed with stage 4 cancer at 42. She had spent her entire life building a corporate law career. Corner office. Expensive suits. Respect of her peers. When she got the diagnosis, she told me the strangest thing happened. All of it became meaningless overnight. Not depressingly. Liberatingly. She stopped caring what people thought. She stopped worrying about reputation. She started saying exactly what she felt. She started spending time with people she actually loved, not people she needed to impress. She told me, the cancer gave me a skull to carry. For the first time in my life, I feel free. This is Ikkyu's invitation. Not to wait for crisis, but to pick up the skull voluntarily. To look at your death not as distant tragedy but as ever-present reality. To ask, if I had 1 year left, what would I stop pretending? If I had 1 month left, who would I tell the truth to? If I had 1 day left, how would I spend it? The Zen tradition has a koan Ikkyu embodied perfectly. It asks, does a dog have Buddha nature? The master answers, mu. Mu doesn't mean yes or no. It negates the question itself. It's a brick wall stopping the thinking mind. Ikkyu didn't study mu. He was mu. His whole life refused to give the logical mind anything to hold on to. When Ikkyu finally died at 87, surrounded by weeping disciples, they begged for a death poem. Final words of wisdom. Ikkyu opened his eyes and smiled. Not peacefully. Mischievously, like he'd just heard the best joke in the universe. He said, I've been writing death poems my whole life. You just weren't paying attention. Every scandalous act. Every cup of sake. Every love poem. Every moment of his crazy, messy, beautiful life was his death poem. He wasn't waiting until the end to say something profound. He was saying it with every breath. This is Ikkyu's practice. Live so authentically that your entire life becomes a statement about what matters. Carry your skull constantly, not as morbid decoration, but as reminder that pretense wastes precious time. Stop pretending. Stop performing. Stop managing terror with achievements. Let the skull teach you what's real. In our next part, we'll gather final words of Zen masters across centuries and discover what they reveal about life, death, and everything between. But for now, practice this. Look at your hand. Really look. See the skin, the lines, the nails. Now see beneath it. See the bones that will one day be someone else's skull. Let that image sit. Let it ask, what are you pretending? What truth are you avoiding? What would you do today if you truly knew this body is temporary? That question is your skull on a stick. Carry it. I'll wait for your signal to continue. We've walked with 3 masters. Hakuin taught us to die now to the false self. Ryokan showed us the moon that remains when everything is taken. Ikkyu carried his skull through the streets and sang about death on New Year's Day. Now we gather with them at the final moment. We'll listen to what Zen masters have said as they faced their own endings. Their death poems are not goodbyes. They are final teachings offered from the very threshold. For over 1,000 years, Zen masters have composed death poems. Some are profound. Some are funny. Some are brutally honest. All emerge from the same discovery: the one who fears death was never really there. Master Shui wrote on his deathbed, holding forth this sword, I cut the void in two. Where the void does not exist, I cleave it asunder. The sword is wisdom cutting through illusion. But even wisdom is empty. You cannot cut emptiness. The very tool used to seek enlightenment is itself an illusion. When the story ends, even the sword dissolves. The seeker disappears. What remains was never lost. Master Xuanzang wrote, in the midst of the world's turmoil, I have created my own quiet world. And now I close the gate. He's describing a mind no longer disturbed by senses and emotions. The gate he closes is perception through which the world rushes in to create suffering. For decades the world entered and he reacted. Now he simply closes the door. The movie is over. He's walking out of the theater. The monk Ho Xin wrote the simplest death poem. Empty-handed I entered the world. Barefoot I leave it. My coming, my going. Two simple happenings that got entangled. Birth and death are just two events. A door opens. A door closes. They become a problem only because we string them into a story called My Life. Ho Xin sees them as separate happenings with no self in between to be bothered. He came empty. He leaves barefoot. The middle was just a dream. Master Sengai's death poem might be the most radical. I hate to die. I really hate to die. That's the entire poem. In a tradition emphasizing serene acceptance, Sengai is brutally honest. The ego hates to die. It's hardwired for survival. Sengai isn't pretending to be beyond that. He lets the feeling arise, acknowledges it, and lets it go. Even, I hate to die, is just another thought arising in awareness that was never born. He's free enough to be honest. Here's an story. A hospice worker told me people die the way they live. Controllers die fighting, bargaining, refusing to let go. People who practiced letting go die peacefully, often smiling. She described a meditator in his final hours. Family crying around his bed. He opened his eyes and whispered, "Why are you crying? I'm not going anywhere. I'm just coming home." Then he closed his eyes and was gone. Not performance. Just truth. Another story. A 90-year-old woman was asked if she feared death. She laughed. Afraid of what? I've been practicing my whole life. Every night I fall asleep and disappear. Every morning I wake up and rebuild myself. This is just the final sleep without the rebuilding. Sounds like a vacation. She noticed what everyone overlooks. Sleep is death's daily rehearsal. She practiced for 90 years without knowing it. Dogen founded Soto Zen in Japan. On his deathbed at 53 he wrote, 54 years. Lighting up the sky. A quivering leap. Smashes a billion worlds. Ha! 54 years was his life. Lighting up the sky was his teaching. The quivering leap is death, the final letting go. And what does that leap do? It smashes a billion worlds. All worlds he created in mind, Zen, disciples, self, enlightenment, history, all shatter. Then the final, ha! A laugh. A shout of liberation. The sound of a billion worlds shattering into eternal moment. Not tragedy. Punchline. Notice what's missing. No begging. No bargaining. No rage. No, remember me. Just observation. Like describing weather. Because from this perspective death is weather. The next cloud passing through vast sky. The autumn leaf finally letting go. These weren't people who suppressed fear. They looked at death so long they realized the one afraid was never there. Fear was just another cloud. They are the sky. You are the sky. Clouds come and go. The sky remains. Here's a final original story. A Buddhist teacher I knew was diagnosed with terminal illness. Students gathered asking for final wisdom. He said, "I have nothing special to tell you. For 40 years I told you everything. If you didn't hear it then, you won't hear it now." They begged. He sighed, picked up an orange from his bedside table, and began peeling it slowly. He ate section by section, eyes closed, completely present. When finished, he wiped his mouth, looked at them, and said, "That's it. That's the whole teaching." He died 3 hours later. His death poem was an orange, fully experienced. In our final part we'll bring everything into practices you can carry forward. But for now, sit with this. If you had to write your death poem right now, one honest line, what would it be? Not profound. Not impressive. Just honest from where you sit today. Sit with that. Let it arise. Don't judge. Just notice. I'll wait for your signal to continue. We've traveled far together. We sat with Hakuin's thunderbolt, die now to the false self. We rested in Ryokan's moonlight, discover what remains when everything is taken. We walked with Ikkyu and his skull, let death teach you what's real. We listened to death poems from masters who faced their endings with honesty and laughter. Now we arrive at the most important question. How do we actually live this? How do we take these ancient teachings and translate them into breath, into action, into today? The answer is practice. Not someday practice. Today practice. Now practice. The Zen masters weren't philosophers. They were practitioners. They didn't write theories about death. They sat with it daily until it lost its power to terrify. We can do the same. Not by moving to a monastery, but by bringing awareness to moments already present in every ordinary day. Here's the first practice. I call it dying to the small story. Every day, dozens of times, something threatens your narrative self. Someone criticizes you. You make a mistake. Plans change. You don't get what you want. In each moment, a story arises. I've been wronged. I'm not good enough. This shouldn't be happening. That story is your ego defending its existence. In that moment, you have a choice. You can cling to the story, reinforce the separate self. Or you can practice dying. You can let the story go. Feel the contraction in your chest. Breathe into it. Ask, what in this moment is actually threatened? Usually, it's just a story. Stories can be released. Try this today. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Notice the anger rising. That's the ego saying, I matter, my time matters, my destination matters. Instead of riding that anger, ask, can I die to being the person who was wronged? Just for this moment. Let that identity dissolve. What's left? Just driving. Just the road. Just now. You've died a little, and the world didn't end. Here's an story. A businessman I know attended a meditation retreat against his will. His wife made him go. He spent the first 2 days miserable, counting hours until he could leave. Then the teacher gave a talk about dying to identity. Something clicked. He realized his misery came from the story, I don't belong here, I'm a businessman not a meditator, this is a waste of my valuable time. He decided to experiment. He let that story die. He became just a person sitting in a room, breathing. By day 4, he was crying during walking meditation. Not from sadness. From relief. He told me later, I spent 50 years building an identity I hated maintaining. Letting it go even for a weekend showed me I could survive without it. Second practice. Sleep as daily rehearsal. Every night you do something remarkable. You lie down, close your eyes, and completely let go. You let go of your name, your problems, your body, the entire world. You dissolve into unconsciousness. This is death. You do it every night. Every morning you wake up and rebuild the character. You remember your name, your worries, your story. Tonight, practice consciously. As you lie in bed, on the edge of sleep, say internally, I am, your name. Feel that identity. Then close your eyes. As you drift, watch the sense of being someone dissolve. Don't fight sleep. Just watch the boundaries melt. Thoughts become dreamlike. Body boundaries fade. You're practicing death. You're letting go consciously. In the morning, notice how you rebuild. Notice the first thought that grabs hold and starts constructing you again. That gap between sleep and waking, before the story starts, is a taste of your true nature. Third practice. The ultimate inquiry. Several times daily, pause. Ask, what am I? Not who. Who leads to story? What leads to direct experience? What is aware right now? What reads these words? What hears sounds in your room? What notices when mind wanders? Don't answer with thought. Thought can only produce more thought. Turn attention back on itself. Feel into awareness. It's like a flashlight trying to see its own light. You can't see it directly, but you can rest as it. Notice this awareness has no form, no color, no size. It was there when you were 5. It's here now. Thoughts changed. Body changed. Awareness never changed. It was never born. How can it die? Here's another original story. A woman I know developed panic attacks after turning 40. She was terrified of death, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Therapy helped slightly, but the fear remained. A friend brought her to a Zen center. The teacher gave her one instruction: find out who is afraid. She sat with that for months. Every time fear arose, she asked, "Who is afraid?" She traced fear back to its source. Eventually she discovered something. The fear wasn't hers. It was just fear arising, like weather. There was no her being threatened. There was just awareness watching fear come and go. The panic attack stopped. Not because death became less real. Because she became less real. The solid self dissolved. What remained couldn't be threatened. Fourth practice. The death poem. Tonight, before sleep, write one honest line. Not for anyone else. Just for you. I'm afraid. I'm tired. I love my children. I never said what mattered. I'm not finished. Whatever arises. Write it. Sit with it. Let it teach you. The masters discovered something we've forgotten. Death isn't waiting at the end. It's arriving in every moment. Every breath is a birth and a death. Every thought appears and vanishes. Every sensation rises and falls. You've already died billions of deaths. You just weren't paying attention. In our final part, we'll bring this all together. We'll sit with the ultimate question these masters answered with their lives. But for now, practice one of these today. Just one. Dying to a small story. Watching sleep consciously. Inquiring into what you are. Writing your honest line. The invitation is open. The only requirement is willingness to look. I'll wait for your signal to continue. We've explored practices together. Dying to small stories throughout the day. Using sleep as death's daily rehearsal. Inquiring into what you actually are. Writing honest lines that become your death poem. Now we arrive at the final question. What becomes of consciousness when the body falls away? The Buddhist tradition offers various maps. Tibetan Buddhism describes the Bardo journey between lives. Early Buddhism teaches rebirth as continuing stream. Zen takes a different approach. Zen says don't speculate. Look directly. What is aware right now? That awareness was never born. How could it die? Let me share something personal. When my father was dying, I sat in that hospital room watching machines beep. I wanted to say something wise from all my years studying Buddhism. My mouth was dry. I was terrified too. Terrified of losing him. Terrified of that same annihilation waiting for me. Then I remembered Hakuin's teaching. The death I feared was already happening. Every night in sleep. Every moment I lost myself in concentration. Every time I forgot myself in laughter or love. The ego dies constantly. I just hadn't been paying attention. I looked at my father differently. He wasn't going somewhere. He was coming home. The awareness that looked through his eyes for 78 years wasn't disappearing. It was simply no longer pretending to be contained in one form. The wave returning to ocean. The dreamer waking up. Here's an story. A neurosurgeon I know witnessed hundreds of deaths. He told me about a woman dying of cancer. In her final days, she became peaceful in ways he couldn't explain. He asked about it. She said, "I spent my whole life thinking I was this body, this personality. Now that it's falling away, I realize I was never any of it. I was the one watching the story. The watcher isn't dying. He said that conversation changed his medicine. He started seeing patients differently. Not as bodies to fix. As awareness temporarily identified with form. Another story. A meditation teacher with ALS lost ability to walk, then speak, then move. She communicated by blinking. Students visited expecting to comfort their dying teacher. Instead she blinked, best thing that ever happened. Finally free of body's demands. Awareness is all that's left and it's enough. When she died, her eyes were open and smiling. Someone found a journal entry from early in her illness, the body is dissolving. What I am is not. She practiced for this her entire life. This brings us to the final paradox. Zen masters aren't asking you to believe in life after death. They're asking you to investigate life before death. What are you before thinking about what you are? What remains when story stops? This isn't philosophy. It's the most direct inquiry available. Shunryu Suzuki said, "Each of you is perfect the way you are, and you can use a little improvement." That's the paradox. You're already deathless awareness. Death can't touch you. And you still need to practice. You still need to look. You still need to let go of clouds obscuring your true nature. Perfection is already there, needing uncovering, moment by moment, choice by choice, little death by little death. Ikkyu carried a skull to remind himself death is always present. Ryokan lost everything and found the moon. Hakuin told us to die now so we could finally live. Ordinary people who look directly at what most avoid. They found freedom on the other side. Here's a final original story. A man at a meditation retreat had what he called the experience on day 6. Walking meditation. The sense of being a separate person dissolved. Just walking. Just sensation. Awareness with no center. Lasted maybe 30 seconds. When it passed, he cried for an hour. Not from loss. From recognition. He said, 40 years thinking I was this struggling person. 30 seconds seeing I was never that at all. I was the space where that person appeared. He spent 20 years trying to get back to those 30 seconds. Eventually he realized the point wasn't having the experience again. The point was recognizing the experience never left. It was always there. He just kept covering it with thinking. This is the invitation. Not to seek special experiences. Not to believe doctrines about after death. To look directly at what's true right now. What is aware? Has that awareness ever been born? Can it die? If you're sitting with this while grieving someone, hear this. You don't need to be strong. You need to be present. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Love searching for its object and not finding it. Let it move through you. Let it break your heart open. In that opening, you might find the one you've lost hasn't gone anywhere. They're present in your very awareness of them. They're part of the screen now. Before we close, sit quietly for 2 minutes. Ask yourself, how would I live today if I truly accepted death as natural as breathing? Not if I believed it intellectually. If I truly accepted it, felt it in my bones. How would I speak? How would I listen? What would I stop pretending? What would I finally say? The paradox these masters discovered: when you stop fearing death, you don't become morbid. You come alive. Radically, vibrantly, unconditionally alive. When you practice dying consciously, you discover what was never born and can never die. You discover you're not the wave desperately holding its shape. You're the entire ocean. You're already practicing dying every night. You might as well learn to do it consciously. Thank you for walking this path with me at Monk's Temple. If this exploration opens something, share in the comments. What arose during these practices? What would your honest death poem be? Subscribe and join us again. We have much more to explore together. The thief has already left. The moon is still at your window. Don't miss it. We've reached our final hour together. 6 parts exploring death through the eyes of Zen masters. 6 parts learning to die so we can finally live. Now I want to offer something different. Not more teaching. More invitation. A closing meditation to integrate everything we've explored. Find a comfortable position. Sitting or lying down. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Take 3 deep breaths. Breathe in slowly. Breathe out completely. Let the day fall away. Let your body settle. Let your mind rest. Now bring your attention to your breath. Don't change it. Just feel it. The air entering your nostrils. The chest rising. The belly expanding. The air leaving. The chest falling. The belly softening. In and out. Natural and easy. This breath is happening by itself. You're not doing it. It's doing you. Now bring your attention to your body. Feel the weight of your body where it contacts chair or bed. Feel the temperature of your skin. Feel any sensations present. Tingling. Warmth. Pressure. Itching. Just notice. No need to change anything. This body is breathing itself. This body is sensing itself. You're not the doer. You're the witness. Now bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice thoughts arising. Passing. Like clouds in vast sky. Don't grab them. Don't push them away. Just watch. Thoughts about past. Thoughts about future. Thoughts about this meditation. All arising. All passing. Who is watching? Who notices when mind wanders? That watcher is what we've been exploring. Now bring your attention to the sense of being someone. The feeling of I at the center of experience. Can you feel it? That sense of being a person named, your name, with a history and future. Notice it. Where is it located? In your head? Your chest? Can you find a solid self anywhere? Or do you just find thoughts claiming there is one? Now bring your attention to what these masters taught. Hakuin said, die now. For this moment, let the sense of being someone dissolve. Just for this breath. Let go of being the person with problems. Let go of being the person with achievements. Let go of being the person with a past. Let go of being the person with a future. Just for this breath. What's left? Awareness. Just awareness. Reading these words is awareness. Hearing sounds is awareness. Feeling the body is awareness. This awareness has no form, no color, no size, no birth date, no expiration. This awareness is what you actually are. Ryokan said the thief left the moon. Everything can be taken. Reputation, possessions, relationships, body, all can be stolen. But the awareness that notices the loss, that was never yours to lose. That's the moon at the window. Always present. Always shining. Just often obscured by clutter. For this moment, let the clutter go. Let the stories go. Let the identities go. Rest as awareness. Just for this breath. Just for this moment. Nothing to do. Nothing to become. Nothing to fear. Just this. Just here. Just aware. Ikkyu carried a skull to remind himself. This body will be bones. This face will be someone else's skull. Not someday. Now. The skull is your true face before you were born. Before parents gave you a name. Before culture gave you a story. Before you learned to be someone. That face is still here. Beneath all the masks. Awareness wearing a body for a while. Playing at being human. Having a temporary experience called, your name. For this moment, feel the skull beneath your skin. Feel the bones that will outlast you. Feel the awareness that won't. The bones return to earth. Awareness returns to itself. It never left. Dogen said a quivering leap smashes a billion worlds. That leap is always happening. Each moment the old you dies. Each moment a new you is born. You've died billions of deaths already. The one you were at 5 is gone. The one you were at 15 is gone. The one you were yesterday is gone. Only awareness remains. Constant. Unchanging. Never born. Never dying. For this moment, feel the death of the last moment. Feel the birth of this one. Fresh. New. Never experienced before. This exact combination of sensations, thoughts, awareness has never existed until now. And it will never exist again. This moment is unique in all of history. And you're here for it. The death poems we heard. Shisui cutting void. Xuanzan closing gate. Hoshin empty-handed. Sengai hating to die. All pointing to the same truth. The one who dies was never real. The one who fears was never there. What you are cannot be threatened because it was never born. For this moment, rest in that. Not as belief. As direct experience. Feel the awareness that knows you're reading. That's what you are. Everything else is just visiting. Now slowly, gently, bring awareness back to the body. Feel the weight again. Feel the breath again. Feel the room around you. When you're ready, open your eyes. You've just practiced dying. You let go of story, identity, past, future. You rested as awareness. That's the practice. That's the path. That's the freedom these masters discovered. Take this with you today. Not as philosophy. As felt experience. When someone cuts you off, remember you just died and survived. When plans change, remember you just let go of everything and something remained. When fear arises, ask who is afraid. Watch the fear dissolve when you realize the one afraid was never there. The invitation never ends. Every moment offers another chance to die and discover what survives. Every breath is a birth and a death. Every night is practice for the final letting go. Thank you for walking this entire path with me at Monk's Temple. 7 parts together. Hours of exploration. Ancient wisdom meeting modern life. 3 masters pointing to one truth. You are not what you think. You are the awareness that thinks. That awareness cannot die. If this series touched you, share it with someone who needs it. Leave a comment about what arose. Subscribe to Monk's Temple for more journeys like this. We have much more to explore together. The thief left long ago. The moon is still at your window. Don't spend another moment missing it. We've completed 7 parts together. 7 journeys into what Zen masters discovered about life and death. Now I want to share something personal. What happened after my father died? What the teachings looked like when the hospital room went quiet. My father passed on a Tuesday morning. 3 days later we held his funeral. I stood before family and friends and delivered a eulogy. People cried. I cried. We buried his body and went home. That night I sat alone in my apartment waiting for something. Grief. Relief. Enlightenment. Nothing came. Just silence. Just emptiness. Just me in a room where nothing had changed except everything had changed. The next weeks were strange. I'd reach for the phone to call him before remembering. I'd see something he'd love and feel the impulse to share before the weight landed. The teachings I'd studied for years felt distant. Hakuin's Die Now. Ryokan's Moon. Ikkyu's Skull. All true. None of them stopped the missing. Here's what I learned. The teachings aren't meant to stop the missing. They're meant to hold it. They're the container for grief, not escape from it. The awareness we've explored doesn't eliminate human emotion. It makes space for it. Infinite space for love, loss, joy, sorrow. All arising and passing in the vast sky of what you are. One night, 2 months after he died, I sat in meditation. His face appeared. Not as memory. As presence. Clear and vivid and close. I heard, not in words but in feeling, I'm not gone. I'm just not hiding anymore. I opened my eyes and cried. Not from grief. From recognition. He wasn't in the body I'd known. He was in the awareness that noticed all of it. He'd always been there. We'd just been too busy being separate to notice. This is what the masters mean by pointing beyond birth and death. Not that you live forever as a person. That you were never only a person to begin with. The person is a costume awareness wears for a while. The costume gets old, gets put away. The awareness keeps going because it never arrived. Here's an story. A woman who lost her son in an accident came to a teacher I knew. She was destroyed. Couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She said, "I don't want teachings. I want my son." The teacher sat silently with her a long time. Then asked, "Where is he?" She said, "Gone. Dead." The teacher said, "Before he was born, where was he?" She was silent. He said, "Wherever he was then, he's there now. And wherever you were then, you're there now. You haven't lost each other. You've just returned to the same place." She sat with that for hours. Something shifted. Not the grief. The grief remained. But the sense of separation softened. This is the invitation. Not to avoid grief. To hold it in awareness so vast that grief becomes part of love rather than enemy of love. Grief is love with nowhere to land. It's love searching for its object and not finding it in form. But the form was never the whole of who they were. The form was the costume. What wore the costume is still here. Still aware. Still connected to the awareness you call you. Here's a practice for grief. When you miss someone, don't push it away. Don't try to transcend it. Sit with it. Feel it completely. The ache in your chest. The emptiness. The tears. Feel all of it. And while feeling, ask, who feels this? That awareness is the same awareness that knew them when they were here. That awareness is where they live now. Not in memory. In presence. Love doesn't die. It just changes containers. Ikkyu wrote love poems to Mori knowing she would die. Knowing he would die. He didn't love despite impermanence. He loved because of it. Every moment precious because fleeting. Every touch sacred because temporary. He let death teach him to appreciate life. What would it mean to live like that today? To look at your partner, parent, child, friend and see the skull beneath the skin. Not morbidly. Preciously. To know this moment with them will never come again. To be fully here while they're fully here. To love without clinging. To hold without grasping. To let them be temporary and love them anyway. Death isn't the enemy of love. Death is what makes love possible. If nothing ended, nothing mattered. If everyone stayed forever, no moment precious. Impermanence isn't a design flaw. It is the design. It makes every hello meaningful and every goodbye sacred. Before closing, sit with this. Think of someone you love. Really see them. Now imagine them gone. Not to frighten yourself. To wake yourself up. Feel how precious they are. Feel how temporary this all is. Now open your eyes. Look at the world. The people you'll meet today. The sky. The ground. All fleeting. All precious. All alive with the same awareness looking through your eyes. The thief leaves everything behind. The moon remains. Be the moon. Warm and present and aware. Shining equally on birth and death, joy and sorrow, gain and loss. All arising and passing in your vast and empty sky. Thank you for 8 parts together. Thank you for walking this path at Monk's Temple. If anything touched you, share it. Leave a comment. Subscribe. The journey continues. The moon is at your window. Always has been. Always will be. Don't miss it. We've walked far together. 8 parts exploring what Zen masters discovered about death and life. Now we arrive at the end. Not of the journey. Of this particular conversation. I want to leave you with a final story. A Zen master was asked by a student, "What happens after death?" The master said, "I don't know." The student was shocked. "But you're a Zen master." The master smiled. "Yes. But not a dead one." This story captures everything. The masters didn't claim to know what happens after death. They claimed to know what's true before death. What's true right now. And what's true right now is awareness. Aware and present and noticing all of it. The question isn't what happens when you die. The question is who dies. If you look for the one who would die, can you find it? Or do you just find thoughts, feelings, sensations appearing and disappearing in awareness? That awareness was never born. No birth date. No expiration. Simply here. Always here. The one constant in every changing experience. This is what Hakuin meant by die now. Let the false self dissolve. Let the story end before the body ends. Discover what remains. What remains is what you've always been. This is what Ryokan meant by the moon at the window. When everything is taken, nothing is missing. The awareness that notices loss was never lost. Just hidden by clutter. This is what Ikkyu meant by carrying the skull. Death isn't coming. It's here. In every breath. Every moment. Every face. Let it teach you. Let it wake you up. Let it remind you what matters. Here's a final story. A woman spent 40 years trying to be good enough. Good enough daughter, wife, mother, employee. Always striving. Always falling short. At 60, she received a terminal diagnosis. 6 months to live. She told me the strangest thing happened. The striving stopped. For the first time, she felt completely at peace. She said, "I spent my whole life trying to become someone worthy. Dying showed me I always was. I just couldn't see it through all the trying. You have one life. One body. One chance to wake up before this dream ends." The masters aren't asking you to believe anything. They're asking you to look. To investigate. To see for yourself. What are you? Not your name. Not your history. Not your thoughts. Not your achievements. What are you before all that? Sit with that question. Let it dissolve everything untrue. The practices remain. Die to small stories daily. Use sleep as rehearsal. Inquire into what you are. Write your honest death poem. Not someday. Today. Now. The thief has already left. Everything you think you own will be taken. The moon remains. The awareness that notices the taking remains. That's what you are. Don't wait until the end to discover this. Practice now. Die now. Let go now. Love now. Live now. Thank you for walking this path with me at Monk's Temple. 8 parts together. 3 masters pointing to one truth: you are not what you think. You are the awareness that thinks. That awareness cannot die. If these teachings touched you, share them. Leave a comment. Subscribe. The journey continues. The invitation never ends. The moon is at your window. Always has been. Always will be. Don't miss it.